After finishing the 100 days of fighting, I was going to put a video up on YouTube, but stuff came up and I didn't get around to it. I wanted to talk about the experiences and the challenges, which were mostly to do with time management, to be honest. It takes me a very long time to kit up, to set up the camera, to figure out I'm missing my gloves, and then that the gloves that I went back to pick up are not in fact mine and that I've turned up with my wife's gloves. At about the 2-week mark, Melissa did take over with the editing, which was a massive boon for me. It was nice to experiment with different techniques. I think I would have driven myself mad if all I had done for this 100 days was hand sniped. It was also fun to pick up different weapons and get to grips with them, and have time to play around with some that I'm not all that familiar with. Due to COVID and travel restrictions, most of the time I was sparring against my own students, but that wasn't a bad thing because it allowed me to see them progress. But that's not to say that I didn't fight students and teachers from other schools. I received a lot of support from people online. Keith, you're my boy, you kept me going. It was nice to receive a lot of support from the HEMA community as well. In all honesty, this was a lot easier than I thought it would be. There were obviously days where I felt achy and bruised, especially after having the vaccine. But the truth is, the hardest thing about fighting every day was planning your day around it. There were times where we had to train early in the morning, and I hate mornings with a passion. There were other days when we got home late and we'd have to train in the dark by floodlight. This also meant sometimes having to turn down invitations to the cinema or to escape rooms. I'm a very popular man. At about the halfway point, my right hand started hurting, and I think I may have sprained some of the muscles from overuse. This meant sparring more with my left hand and doing more hand-to-hand fighting. While certainly frustrating, I obviously learned a lot from this, to do with body mechanics, fighting with my left hand, and how best to apply an offhand weapon. It gave me an idea for the next project I'd like to do, which I'm thinking of starting in October, and that's learning to fight as a southpaw. But more on that later. Toward the latter part of the challenge, I found it easier to incorporate the fighting into my daily routine. Teaching 3 times a week obviously helped with that. And as restrictions eased, there were different techniques we could apply in class, which helped me to build myself back up after lockdown. After sparring with the same people after a few months, it was certainly strange to be going to fight camp where I was exposed to a variety of different fencers with different abilities. It was nice to be able to cross swords with people I hadn't met before, as well as some old friends, and bring what I'd learned back to class and to my own training. If you're thinking of doing this yourself, I'd recommend A, have some space with which you can spar, maybe a back garden or just a parking area, or be willing to travel, and B, marry a scrappy wife who's happy to do most of the editing for you. If you watch this series, thank you so much for your support. If you feel like hitting like and subscribe, that would be ace, and if you have any suggestions of other projects of this kind that I could do, I'd be happy to hear them, as I do get bored pretty easily.